on doing. It's just part of it. You know, there's entertainers and there's competitors. And I totally understand that. And my job is to compete. And that's what I'm focused on doing.
Because people are going to ask you questions. This is the reason I had to start going to practice. When it comes to being a supercomputer, he was only second to Skynet in the Terminator series. He is now capable of sending Terminators backwards and forward through time, waging a war with the Shedeur Sanders fans.
I disagree with you. I think he was taking a shot at Shedeur.
You think so?
When have we ever thought about the media, those beat writers as entertainers? We've heard his coach, he was on the team when said they're celebs.
And he knows what follows Shedeur. Look,
the entertainers and a competitor, and he's a competitor, and he wasn't taking a shot at Shedeur, but the damage was done. Everybody knows what he meant by that, because you know why? And I'm gonna let you take off. You remember at Oregon, what the head coach said when they played Colorado?
Right.
Who was the quarterback?
Yeah.
Who was the quarterback?
Okay. Well, listen, I don't. Hey, Chad, I don't want to do him like that. I'm gonna give Dillon Gabriel a little grace, a little understanding, because I don't think a college kid coming in as a rookie in the NFL would take that kind of shot at a teammate that he's competing with for a job.
Can't be easy being in camp with Shedeur Sanders, right? But you can't be sitting here trolling your fellow rookie, because that's what it sounded like.
Dillon Gabriel just made the most expensive mistake in NFL history, and it cost him everything. While Shedeur Sanders was building a dynasty through strategic silence and calculated moves, Gabriel's ego exploded in the most spectacular career suicide we've ever witnessed. One interview, 5 devastating words, and a third-round pick just threw away a potential $100 million career. The evidence is brutal, the timeline is damning, and the consequences are already destroying his future. This isn't just about football. This is about how unchecked arrogance can obliterate a lifetime of work in minutes. What we're about to witness is the complete psychological breakdown of an NFL prospect in real time. Dillon Gabriel didn't just lose a quarterback competition. He systematically destroyed his own career through a series of ego-driven decisions that revealed his true character to the entire league. While Shedeur Sanders was playing chess, Gabriel was having a public meltdown that exposed his jealousy, insecurity, and complete lack of professional maturity. Today, I'm going to break down exactly how Gabriel's ego turned him from a promising third-round pick into NFL poison, why his entertainer versus competitor comments were career suicide, and how his jealousy of Sanders' success led to the most spectacular self-destruction in recent memory. From his disastrous debut performance to his inflammatory interview, every decision Gabriel made was driven by an ego that couldn't handle being overshadowed. The result? A cautionary tale about how arrogance can destroy everything you've worked for in a matter of weeks. The first crack in Dillon Gabriel's facade appeared the moment Shedeur Sanders stepped onto that field against Carolina. While Sanders was completing 14 of 23 passes for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns, drawing 2.2 million viewers and setting preseason records, Gabriel was watching from the sidelines, and his jealousy was eating him alive. Think about what Gabriel witnessed: a rookie quarterback, drafted in the same class, instantly becoming the most talked about player in the NFL. Nike campaigns appearing overnight, merchandise flying off shelves, social media exploding with praise, and national media treating Sanders like the second coming of Tom Brady. Meanwhile, Gabriel, the third-round pick who was supposed to be ahead of Sanders on the depth chart, was relegated to backup status, watching his dreams evaporate in real time. The psychological pressure was unbearable. Gabriel had spent his entire college career at Oklahoma being the star, the leader, the guy everyone looked to for answers. Suddenly, he was the afterthought in his own quarterback room, overshadowed by a player who hadn't even been expected to climb this fast. The ego that had carried him through college was now his biggest enemy. Sources inside the Browns facility described Gabriel's behavior during this period as increasingly agitated and visibly frustrated during team meetings. While Sanders maintained his calm, professional demeanor, Gabriel was showing the first signs of the psychological breakdown that would ultimately destroy his career. Teammates noticed a change: the forced smiles, the defensive body language, the way he would tense up whenever Sanders' name was mentioned. The breaking point came when Gabriel realized he wasn't just competing against Sanders, he was losing to him in every measurable way. Viewership numbers, social media engagement, merchandise sales, media coverage, fan enthusiasm, Sanders was dominating every metric that matters in today's NFL. Gabriel's ego couldn't process being second best, especially to someone he viewed as all hype and no substance. But here's where Gabriel's character flaws became fatal. Instead of using this as motivation to improve his game, he let jealousy consume him. Instead of studying Sanders' success and learning from it, he began plotting ways to tear him down. The seeds of his eventual self-destruction were planted in these moments of unchecked envy. The most damning evidence of Gabriel's psychological state came from his social media activity during this period. While Sanders was posting strategic, professional content that built his brand, Gabriel's posts became increasingly desperate attempts to stay relevant. Workout videos with captions about real competitors, training footage with subtle digs at entertainers, and motivational quotes that read more like passive-aggressive attacks on his teammate. Gabriel's ego was writing checks his talent couldn't cash, and everyone in the organization could see it. The confident college star was transforming into an insecure, jealous backup who couldn't handle being overshadowed. This psychological deterioration would set the stage for the spectacular public meltdown that was about to unfold. The jealousy was just the beginning. The real destruction was yet to come. When Dillon Gabriel finally got his chance to prove himself against the Philadelphia Eagles, his ego had already set him up for failure. Instead of approaching the game with humility and focus, Gabriel walked onto that field carrying the weight of his jealousy, his desperation to outshine Sanders, and his need to prove he was the real competitor. The result was a performance that exposed every character flaw he'd been hiding. Gabriel's statistics tell only part of the story: 18 completions on 29 attempts, 173 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 2 costly turnovers. But the film reveals the psychological breakdown happening in real time. On the pick six that gave the Eagles their first touchdown, Gabriel forced a throw into heavy coverage near the sideline, a rookie gamble driven by desperation rather than sound decision-making. This wasn't a calculated risk by a confident quarterback. This was a desperate attempt by an insecure player trying to make a highlight reel play to match Sanders' success. Gabriel's ego demanded he prove his superiority with spectacular throws, but his talent couldn't execute what his arrogance demanded. The result was Eagles rookie Andrew Makuba stepping in front of the pass and cruising untouched for 6 points. The botched handoff to Pierre Strong was even more revealing. This wasn't a complex play action or difficult timing route. This was a basic exchange that Gabriel had executed thousands of times. But his mind wasn't on fundamentals, it was on proving he belonged in the same conversation as Sanders. The mental pressure of trying to be something he wasn't caused him to fail at the most basic aspects of quarterback play. Kevin Stefanski's post-game comments revealed just how badly Gabriel's ego had sabotaged his performance. 2 giveaways really were the difference there in that first half because I thought we were doing some really good things. Translation: Gabriel's mental mistakes cost the team momentum and nearly lost them the game despite solid play everywhere else. But here's what made Gabriel's performance truly damaging. It came immediately after Sanders had set the bar impossibly high. While Sanders had looked calm, composed, and in complete control during his debut, Gabriel appeared frantic, desperate, and overwhelmed by the moment. The contrast was devastating and impossible to ignore. The most brutal aspect was the timing. Gabriel knew the entire football world was watching, comparing his every move to Sanders' breakout performance. Instead of rising to the occasion, he crumbled under the pressure his own ego had created. Every incompletion was magnified, every mistake was analyzed, and every poor decision was immediately compared to how Sanders might have handled the same situation. Gabriel's ego had convinced him he could match Sanders' instant success, but reality delivered a harsh lesson. Talent without mental toughness is worthless, and arrogance without substance is career suicide. The performance wasn't just disappointing, It was the public execution of Gabriel's NFL dreams, broadcast live for millions to witness. The worst part? Gabriel still didn't learn his lesson. The real destruction was just beginning. If Dillon Gabriel's on-field performance was career-damaging, his post-game interview was career-ending. In a moment of pure ego-driven stupidity, Gabriel delivered the 5 words that would define his NFL legacy, calling Shedeur Sanders an entertainer while positioning himself as the true competitor. This wasn't just a poor choice of words, this was character assassination of himself, broadcast live for the entire football world to witness. The context makes Gabriel's comments even more damaging. He had just thrown a pick six, fumbled a handoff, failed to score a single touchdown, and needed his defense to bail him out with a game-winning interception return. Meanwhile, Sanders had delivered a flawless debut performance that broke viewership records and generated nationwide buzz. Yet somehow, Gabriel had the audacity to suggest that Sanders was just an entertainer while he was the real competitor. The arrogance was breathtaking. Gabriel essentially argued that his inferior performance represented real competition while Sanders' superior play was just entertainment. This level of delusion revealed a psychological break from reality that no NFL organization could ignore. Front offices don't invest in players who can't accurately assess their own performance or respect their teammates' success. Shannon Sharpe's immediate response exposed the deeper pattern of Gabriel's character flaws. Sharpe connected Gabriel's comments to Oregon's similar jab at Colorado last season, when Gabriel was Oregon's quarterback and Sanders was again the target. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a recurring pattern of Gabriel using coded language to diminish Sanders' accomplishments while elevating his own mediocre performance. The entertainer versus competitor framing was particularly toxic because it played into racial stereotypes about black quarterbacks being flashy rather than fundamentally sound. Gabriel knew exactly what he was doing with this language choice, and it revealed a character flaw that goes beyond simple jealousy into something much darker and more problematic. Bush's analysis was devastating. Gabriel had been praised for his Skynet-like processing speed and compared to the Terminator for his decision-making ability, yet here he was waging war against Sanders' fan base instead of competing against elite competition. The irony was brutal. The supposed supercomputer quarterback was making the most emotionally driven, illogical decisions possible. Chad Okocinco-Johnson tried to give Gabriel some grace, suggesting that a rookie wouldn't deliberately sabotage team chemistry. But the evidence was overwhelming. Gabriel's comments weren't accidental or misunderstood. They were calculated attacks driven by jealousy and ego that revealed his true character to the entire league. The timing made everything worse. Gabriel delivered these comments immediately after a performance that proved Sanders was the superior quarterback. Instead of showing humility or acknowledging his mistakes, Gabriel doubled down on arrogance and attacked the player who had outperformed him in every measurable way. In 5 words, Gabriel revealed himself to be jealous, delusional, unprofessional, and potentially problematic on racial issues. No NFL organization wants those character traits in their quarterback room, regardless of talent level. Gabriel didn't just lose a competition, he destroyed his reputation permanently. The most devastating consequence of Dillon Gabriel's ego explosion wasn't just public embarrassment, it was the complete organizational abandonment that followed. Within hours of his inflammatory comments, Gabriel went from struggling competitor to toxic liability that no one in the Browns organization wanted to defend. Kevin Stefanski's confession calling Gabriel's selection a mistake wasn't a slip of the tongue, it was organizational damage control. After Gabriel's public attack on Sanders, Stefanski had no choice but to distance the coaching staff from a player who had just revealed himself to be a locker room cancer. The timing of the confession, immediately after Gabriel's interview, sent a clear message: the organization was cutting ties with a player whose ego had made him uncoachable. The locker room dynamics shifted dramatically within minutes of Gabriel's comments, with teammates celebrating privately and expressing relief about returning to Sanders. But these weren't organic reactions, they were the result of Gabriel's toxic behavior finally being exposed publicly. Players had been watching Gabriel's jealousy and arrogance behind closed doors, and his interview gave them permission to openly reject his leadership. Offensive linemen who had struggled to protect Gabriel during his debut were reportedly celebrating privately, having witnessed firsthand how his ego affected his decision-making under pressure. When your own offensive line is happy to see you benched, you've lost the most fundamental support system any quarterback needs to succeed. The front office response was swift and brutal. Sources described emergency meetings where executives discussed contract implications and damage control strategies. Gabriel's representation was contacted immediately, not to offer support, but to begin exploring exit strategies. The organization wasn't trying to salvage Gabriel's career, they were trying to minimize the damage he could cause to their franchise. Jimmy Haslam's reported volcanic eruption wasn't just about Gabriel's poor performance, it was about a third-round investment who had just revealed himself to be a character liability. NFL owners don't tolerate players who create unnecessary drama, attack teammates publicly, and demonstrate the kind of ego problems that destroy team chemistry. The most damning evidence of organizational abandonment came from the complete lack of public support for Gabriel after his comments. No coaches defended him, no teammates spoke up for him, no front office executives offered clarification or context. The silence was deafening and spoke volumes about how completely Gabriel had isolated himself through his own actions. Gabriel's agent reportedly began demanding clarification and exploring options immediately after the interview, which suggests they knew the damage was irreversible. When your own representation is looking for escape routes rather than defending your comments, you've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. The Browns had invested draft capital, coaching time, and organizational resources in Gabriel's development. But his ego-driven self-destruction made him radioactive within the organization. No amount of talent can overcome character flaws that make you uncoachable, and Gabriel had just proven he possessed every red flag that NFL teams avoid. Gabriel didn't just lose a competition, he lost the respect, support, and investment of an entire NFL organization through his own arrogant choices. Dillon Gabriel's ego-driven meltdown didn't just cost him the Browns' starting job, it created a permanent stain on his NFL reputation that will follow him for the rest of his career. In today's interconnected league, where every comment is recorded and every character flaw is shared between organizations, Gabriel's public breakdown has made him untouchable. The entertainer versus competitor comments revealed character flaws that NFL teams spend millions trying to avoid. Front offices don't just evaluate talent, they assess leadership potential, locker room chemistry, and psychological stability. Gabriel failed all three tests spectacularly, demonstrating jealousy, poor judgment, and the kind of ego problems that destroy team culture. NFL executives talk, and Gabriel's behavior in Cleveland will be discussed in every front office across the league. The combination of poor performance under pressure, public attacks on teammates, and inability to handle being overshadowed creates a profile that no organization wants in their quarterback room. Gabriel isn't just a backup quarterback anymore, he's a cautionary tale. The financial implications are staggering. Third-round quarterbacks who develop into starters can earn $100+ million over their careers through second contracts and extensions. Gabriel's ego just destroyed that earning potential permanently. Even if he develops into a competent backup, his character issues will prevent him from ever being trusted with a starting role or the massive contracts that come with it. The social media evidence will haunt Gabriel forever. His passive-aggressive posts during Sanders' rise, his desperate attempts to stay relevant, and his inflammatory interview comments are permanently archived for any team considering signing him. In an era where character evaluation includes extensive social media analysis, Gabriel's digital footprint reveals a player with serious maturity issues. The racial undertones of Gabriel's comments make him even more toxic to NFL organizations. In a league that's 70% black, with predominantly black quarterback rooms, Gabriel's coded language about entertainers versus competitors will be remembered and discussed. No team wants to bring in a player who might create racial tension or demonstrate unconscious bias against teammates. Gabriel's agent is already reportedly exploring options, which in NFL terms means looking for any team desperate enough to overlook character red flags for potential talent. But even desperate teams have standards, and Gabriel's public meltdown demonstrated problems that coaching can't fix. The comparison to Sanders makes everything worse. While Gabriel was imploding publicly, Sanders was demonstrating exactly the kind of character traits that NFL teams value: strategic thinking, emotional control, professional maturity, and the ability to handle pressure. The contrast couldn't be more stark or more damaging to Gabriel's future prospects. Most devastating is the timing. Gabriel's meltdown happened during his rookie season, when teams are most forgiving of mistakes and most willing to invest in development. If you can't handle competition and pressure as a rookie, when will you ever develop the mental toughness required for NFL success? Gabriel's ego didn't just cost him a starting job, it cost him his entire NFL future. The $100 million mistake is complete, and there's no coming back from character assassination this thorough and this public. Dillon Gabriel's story isn't just about a failed quarterback competition, it's a masterclass in how unchecked ego can destroy everything you've worked for in a matter of weeks. While Shedeur Sanders was building a dynasty through strategic silence and professional maturity, Gabriel was systematically destroying his own career through jealousy, arrogance, and spectacular poor judgment. The timeline is brutal. Sanders' record-breaking debut triggered Gabriel's jealousy, his disastrous performance exposed his mental weakness, his inflammatory interview revealed his character flaws, and the organizational abandonment that followed sealed his fate permanently. In less than a month, Gabriel went from promising third-round pick to NFL pariah, all because his ego couldn't handle being overshadowed. The $100 million mistake is complete. Gabriel's potential earnings, his starting opportunities, and his NFL future have all been sacrificed on the altar of his own arrogance. The entertainer versus competitor comments will follow him forever, serving as a permanent reminder of how jealousy and poor character can obliterate a lifetime of work in minutes. What makes this even more tragic is that it was entirely preventable. Gabriel could have used Sanders' success as motivation, learned from his techniques, and competed with class and professionalism. Instead, he chose the path of ego-driven destruction that revealed every character flaw NFL teams spend millions trying to avoid. The contrast with Sanders couldn't be more stark. While Gabriel was having public meltdowns and attacking teammates, Sanders was demonstrating the exact leadership qualities that build dynasties. One player understood that success in the NFL requires mental toughness and emotional intelligence. The other proved he possessed neither. Gabriel's career isn't just over, it's become a cautionary tale that will be studied in front offices for years to come. His name will be whispered in draft rooms as an example of how talent without character is worthless, and how ego without substance is career suicide. The most brutal irony? Gabriel called Sanders an entertainer, but he's the one who provided all the drama. Sanders was competing while Gabriel was performing, and his performance just cost him everything. This is what happens when ego meets reality in the NFL. Gabriel thought he was too good to be overshadowed, too talented to fail, and too important to be replaced. He was wrong on all counts, and now he'll spend the rest of his career paying for those 5 devastating words that revealed his true character to the world. What other NFL players have destroyed their careers through ego-driven mistakes? Let me know in the comments what meltdowns you think were the most career-damaging, and make sure you subscribe because I'm going to keep exposing how arrogance and poor character destroy NFL dreams. Next week, I'm revealing the biggest draft busts who sabotage themselves through attitude problems. The stories will shock you. Dillon Gabriel's $100 million mistake is complete, and there's no coming back from self-destruction this thorough and this public.